Now releasing all goblins.
Hey gang, using the promo code MTGMudsta, one word, all caps, will get you 10% off orders of $10 or more at Flipside Gaming, Original Magic Art, and orders of singles at Multizone. If they don't have what you're looking for, you could check out TCG Player and use my affiliate link to help support the channel. Looking for a way to bling out your deck and not spend a fortune? Alter Sleaze can help with that, and you can help with the channel at the same time by using my affiliate link. Or, if you're looking to join the Goblin Gang, you can always support me through Patreon. Hello my friends! You may have noticed from today's thumbnail that these are some brand new commanders. And don't worry, this game was filmed respecting social distancing, as we did it in my garage, wearing masks, and keeping far apart. I am playing Max's Phylath deck, keeping an Evolving Wilds, Courser of Kruphix, Kessig Wolfrun, Decimate, Burgeoning, Forest, and a Null Mage Shepherd. Martin is playing Tazri, Beacon of Unity, keeping Scrubland, Taiga, Sol Ring, Virtus the Veiled, Nimble Trapfinder, Reki, and Trin. Max is playing Zareth Sun, keeping an Island, an Ancient Tomb, Swamp, Malakir Rebirth, Blackbloom Rogue, and Thassa. And last but not least, Nick is playing Pako and Haldan, keeping Sol Ring, 3 Mountains, Kessig Wolfrun, Cinder Glade, and Expansion Explosion. Max wins the die roll and starts us off. Max plays an island and passes. Nick plays a mountain and casts Sol Ring. I play a forest and cast Burgeoning. Martin plays a Scrubland, and Burgeoning lets me drop an Evolving Wilds. Martin then also casts Sol Ring and passes. Max plays an Ancient Tomb, and I drop Kessig Wolfrun. He then takes 2 as he taps out for Thassa, and at the end of turn, I sacrifice my Evolving Wilds to go and find a basic. Nick's turn has him playing a tap Cinder Glade and passing. I tap all of my mana for Courser of Kruphix, and I reveal my top card, playing the mountain off the top and gaining 1 life as it enters. I then reveal Mirror March and pass to Martin. Martin draws for turn and plays a Plateau. He taps all of his mana for Trin, Champion of Freedom, who enters, and the partner with trigger goes off. This lets Martin go and grab Sylvar, Devourer of the Free, and he puts it to his hand. Max scries, keeps it there, draws, and plays a Swamp. He then passes turn. Nick plays a Mountain and brings up Pako in his main phase. The doggo has haste, and he swings Pako at me during his combat step. We resolve the Pako on attack trigger, and the table exiles their top cards to Pako's ability. There are no creatures among them, so Pako gains 4 +1/+1 counters, and the cards are exiled with a fetch counter on them. I then take 7 commander damage, and Nick passes. I draw and reveal Liege of the Tangle off the top. I paid 2 mana for a Scavenging Ooze, and pass to Martin. Martin plays a Misty Rainforest, losing 1 life to go and find a land. He shortcuts before searching though, casting Sylvar, and goes at Max with Trin. Before moving from the attacker step though, Max casts Dark Ritual, and then loses 2 life tapping the Ancient Tomb, so he can flash out Zareth San. He blocks Trin with his commander, but before damage is dealt, Martin sacrifices Trin to Sylvar to make Sylvar indestructible and put a +1/+1 counter onto the beast. Max scries and draws, playing an island. Moving to combat, Zareth hits me for 4. This allows Max to steal my Evolving Wilds, which he immediately plays and sacrifices it to go and find a basic. He then passes to Nick. Nick draws and plays a mountain. He pays 5 in his main phase for World at War, gaining an additional combat phase and a main phase. He swings Pako at me, and we all exile our top cards. Pako only gains 3 +1/+1 counters this time, and I block with my Scavenging Ooze. Before it dies, I exile a creature from Martin's yard to gain 1 life, and then it goes to my graveyard. Moving to his extra main phase, Nick then passes through it and goes immediately to the extra combat step. This time Pako goes at max, and we exile our top cards again, with Pako gaining even more counters as we do. It doesn't matter how big Pako is though, because Max casts Curtain's Call at a reduced cost to take out Pako and my Courser before damage is even dealt. Nick then passes to me. I draw and cast Null Mage Shepherd in my main phase, passing to Martin. Martin plays a Swamp and casts Riki, History of Kamigawa in his main phase. We then see a Virtus the Veiled, with Martin drawing a card first from Riki, and then tutoring for Gorm after it resolves. Max scries the top card to the bottom, and plays a tap Cryptid Agadim. Moving to combat, Zareth finds his way back at me again. Max suggests I don't block due to the potential of Pako coming at me next turn and smashing me for upwards of 7, and I sadly listen. I take the 4 commander damage, and Max steals my Courser this time. He flips his top card, revealing Consuming Aberration. Max then plays out a Black Bloom Rogue in his post-combat main phase, passing. Nick casts his World at War in his upkeep because of Rebound, and draws. He plays out Pako again in his main phase, and once more, the doggo goes at me. We exile our top cards, and this time Pako only gains 2 +1/+1 counters. I decide to just take the 5. Nick then moves through his extra main phase into his extra combat step, swinging Pako at Max this time. We exile our top cards again, and Pako gains 3 more +1/+1 counters. Max decides to block with the recently cast Black Bloom Rogue, and with nothing else, Nick passes. I play a Naya Panorama, passing. Martin plays Forbidden Orchard as his land drop, and goes to combat. He swings Virtus at Nick, who takes the hit for 1, and Nick then loses half of his life from Virtus' trigger rounded up. In Martin's second main phase, we see Virtus' other half, and Gorm joins the fray. He draws a card from the Reki's trigger, and then taps 2 mana. He gives me the Spirit token from the Forbidden Orchard trigger as he casts a Nimble Trap Finder, and Martin then passes. Max scries the top card to the bottom, and draws. He reveals Arcane Denial on the top, and then casts Enter the God Eternals in his main phase. He targets Reki for the Destroy, and Nick for the Mill. With the targets chosen, Max sacrifices his Reki to Sylvar, giving the beast another +1/+1 counter and making it indestructible, while Nick still has to mill 4, and Max amasses 4. Max then goes to combat, hitting Nick for 4 commander damage. Zareth then lets Max steal Nick's Arcane Signet and play it, and he passes to Nick. Nick draws, and casts Circuitous Roots, and with the spell in the stack, copies it with Expansion. This lets him go and find 4 basics or gates, and Nick passes as he searches. I draw, and cast World Shaper. I can't do anything else, so I pass to Martin. Martin draws and plays a Plains. He counts up his mana and taps it, giving me another Spirit. He uses it to cast a Maelstrom Nexus, and then casts Tazri, Beacon of Unity for a reduced cost. Martin then moves to combat, and swings a Nimble Trap Finder at Max, which is now unblockable because a Cleric, Rogue, Warrior, or Wizard has entered the battlefield. Martin then passes once it connects. Max keeps the Arcane Denial on top, drawing it, and plays the Swamp off the top, gaining 1 life. We see a Sir Conrad in his main phase, losing 2 from the Ancient Tomb to help cast him. Max then activates Thassa to make Zareth unblockable, and goes at Martin. Zareth then connects, and Max steals Misty Rainforest. Nick casts Haldan in his main phase, gaining access to a lot of the cards he exiled in the previous Pako attacks. He first plays Wayward Swordtooth, and then plays a Gavany Township and an island from exile. Nick then casts Temporal Spring to put Virtus on top of Martin's library, and we move to combat. Pako gets swung at Max, and we all exile our top cards, and Pako gains some counters. Moving to blocks, Max puts his Zombie Army token in front of the Dog. With the token dying, Sir Conrad deals 1 to all of Max's opponents. Moving to the post-combat phase, Nick then casts Lightning Greaves, and moves them onto Pako. With the equip on the stack, Max casts Malicious Affliction, targeting Pako and Haldan. But since Nick controls one of his commanders, he's able to cast Deflecting Swat for free, and changes the target's affliction. He picks the Courser of Krufix and my World Shaper. Max's opponents take 2 from Sir Conrad seeing stuff die, and with my World Shaper dying, it returns to field my Evolving Wilds tapped. The Greaves are then equipped onto Pako, and Nick passes. I draw, and sacrifice my Evolving Wilds and Naya Panorama to go and find some basics. I pass while searching, and Max also does the same, sacrificing the Misty to go and find a sunken hollow. Martin casts Zendikar Resurgent in his main phase, getting a Cascade before the spell resolves. He hits Sylvan Reclamation, and decides to target Thassa and Max's stolen Arcane Signet. They're exiled, and Martin then plays out Arid Mesa, passing as he sacrifices it. Max draws and passes. At the end of turn, Nick casts Brainstorm, drawing 3 and putting 2 cards from his hand back on top. Nick places 2 lands for his turn from ones he stole from us, and floats some mana before moving the Lightning Greaves over onto Haldan. He then casts Bear Umbra, targeting Pako, which Max tries to counter with Arcane Denial. Nick responds to this with Spelljack, casting the spell with a fetch counter on it from exile to counter the counter. Bear Umbra then resolves, and Nick goes to combat. He swings Pako at Max, and we exile our top cards. Pako gets 3 counters as a result, and Nick gets to untap his lands thanks to the Bear Umbra before even connecting. Before doing so though, he does activate the Kessig Wolf Run, putting 0 into the X, mainly just to give Pako trample. Max then blocks with Zareth, and with nothing happening from Nick, casts Malakir Rebirth on Zareth. This has Max losing 2 life, and Zareth then dies, with Sir Conrad dealing 1 to us from Zareth dying, and then Zareth immediately comes back, which has Sir Conrad dealing another 1 to us again. Even with all these tricks, Max still takes 10 from Pako. Nick then casts a Stolen Strategy, Sword of Feast and Famine, and then equips it onto the Wayward Swordtooth.
The Wayward Swordtooth? Hey!
He then moves the Greaves back onto Pako and passes turn. At the end of turn, I use my Spirits and the Null Mage to blow up the Bear Umbra. I draw for turn and cast Rampaging Baloth. I play a Forest, getting a Beast token as a landfall trigger resolves. I ask Martin if leaving his mana doubler up for 1 turn will result in dealing with Nick, and he says he sure hopes so. I decide to give him 1 turn with it, and pass. Martin draws, and in his main phase, casts Corvith Bright Flame. He's got a whole lot of triggers to resolve, drawing first from the Resurgent trigger, and then cascading. He cascades into a Soulblade Renewer, casting it, and drawing from the Resurgent. It then enters, and lets him go and find a Soulblade Corruptor to put to hand. He uses this as a chance to go and find Sylvia Brightspear, since Corvath is entering in a few seconds anyway. The Renewer also supports 2, which has him putting a +1/+1 counter onto the Nimble Trapfinder and Gorm as it enters. 4 mana then gets Martin Vizier of Many Faces, getting a draw from the Resurgent, and then having it come in as a copy of Haldan. This lets Martin go into his library and tutor up his copy of Pako. He's got almost an entire party at this point, just missing the Cleric, and Martin then casts Zagreth, whose cost is also reduced because of the creature types. He also gives Max a Spirit because of the Orchard being tapped, and draws from the Resurgent trigger from Zagros being cast. The Soulblade Corruptor then hits the stack, and Martin draws a card from the Resurgent trigger, and he moves to combat. He swings Corvath and Zagros at Nick, Sylvar at Max, and the Trapfinder at me. I take 3, Max takes 6, and Nick takes 7. Martin then passes, and at the end of turn, Max activates Sir Conrad, and we all mill our top card. We hit 1 creature from the 4 bind, with Max dealing 1 to his opponents. He does it again, and whiffs on the creature, and then moves to his turn. Max draws, and mills us all again with Sir Conrad. 1 creature hits the yard, and Sir Conrad deals 1 to Max's opponents. Max then plays out Trailblazer Boots, and equips him onto Zareth. He goes at Martin, connecting for 4, and steals the Misty Rainforest again, passing. Nick's upkeep has the Stolen Strategy triggering, and we all exile our top cards. He then moves the Greaves onto Haldan, and casts Artful Dodge onto Pako. Nick then moves the Sword onto Pako, and finally puts the Greaves back onto the Doggo. This prompts Max to lose 1 life as he sacrifices the Misty to go and find a land. Once that's finished, Nick casts Portent and targets Martin. He looks at Martin's top 3, rearranging the cards in his choosing. Nick then decides to move the Greaves back over onto Haldan and goes to combat, swinging Pako at Martin. We exile our top cards to Pako's trigger, and Pako gains 3 +1/+1 counters. Pako will only be doing 15 points of damage, which isn't enough to take Martin out. This has Nick activating the Kessig Wolf Run to pump into lethal. Before damage though, Martin sacrifices a human to Sylvar, which has Max's Sir Conrad going off. This deals 1 damage to each of Max's opponents, and deals the final point of damage to Nick, who only has 1 life left. Nick then dies, and at the end of Nick's now defunct turn, I blow up Zendikar Resurgent by tapping some creatures with a Null Mage. For my turn, I cast Hour of Promise in my main phase, and go and find 2 lands, putting them onto the field tapped. I grab a mountain, and Gaia's Cradle, gaining 2 landfall triggers from the Baloth, and gaining 2 beasts. I then pass. Martin plays a mountain for turn, and plays his own Pako. He cascades, hitting a Towerju Paragon, finally finding the last member of his party. He then goes to his library to find his copy of Haldan, and puts it to hand. We then see Pyr come out, and Martin goes to tutor for Toothy. We see some mana get tapped for Sylvia Brightspear, and he gives the spirit to me with the Forbidden Orchard trigger. He swings the first 4 creatures at Max, and the rest of what he can at me. We resolve the Pako triggers, exiling our top cards, and Martin's Pako gets 2 +1/+1 counters. Before moving to blocks, Max activates Sir Conrad, milling our top card. He doesn't hit any creatures though, unfortunately, and decides to do it once more. There are 2 creatures this time, which triggers Sir Conrad twice, dealing 1 damage apiece. Max is then unfortunately hopelessly dead, even with blocks, and I put 2 spirits in front of Gorm, 1 in front of the other, and 1 spirit in front of each of the others, taking 3 from the Nimble Trap Finder. This lets Martin draw a card as it connects, and he then passes to me. I draw, and cast Phylath in my main phase, making 7 plants as it enters. I then tap the Cradle for 12 mana, and cast Return of the Wildspeaker, picking the mode to draw some cards. I then drop Helm of the Host, and equip it onto Phylath. And we then head to combat, with the Helm making a token copy of my commander, and making more plant tokens. I then pass turn, discarding down to 7. Sadly, Martin doesn't need to do much on his turn, playing a Polluted Delta, and sacrificing it to find an island. He then casts a large Villainous Wealth, and we see some cards from my library. He casts Chaos Orb on my helm, and I shuffle it in and reveal Creep Hulk. He then casts Embercleave on Zareth, and Splendid Reclamation, grabbing his fetches. And then only has to swing in the air to take me out. Game review time! So this one was a lot of fun, and it really reminded me how much I missed playing EDH in person. I also found that I was pretty exhausted afterwards, since socializing apparently isn't something I do anymore. But enough about me, let's talk about the decks. Pako and Haldan are probably one of my favorite Temur Commander partners, or Temur decks in general, that have come out recently. I think their mechanic is beautifully balanced, and I think Pako is a huge beater that can get out of control very quickly. I've played against a few iterations of it, and I know a lot of people say that you shouldn't be too worried about Pako since he doesn't have any kind of trample, but frankly, every time he swings, he denies me a card, and simultaneously gives someone access to one of my cards, assuming it's not a creature. And that's just before blocks even. This is definitely one of those kind of cards where someone sits down with it, and it's on my radar since the get-go. Zareth was actually one of the cards that made me think of Mike from New Jersey, since he had that Mirko Vosk on Connect Tribal. I'm not saying that Zareth is better than Mirko Vosk, but I can see them both working very well in each other's decks. I don't think I did a particularly good job of showcasing Phylath, since the hand that I kept, while seemingly good, unfortunately fizzled out by turn 4. I wasn't hitting any of my land drops, which in a landfall deck is not where you want to be. And last but not least, Madman Martin has built another crazy deck, and this time focused around the partner with mechanic. I love that it works so well with Tazri, since a lot of these creatures tend to have a relevant creature type for party, and it was fantastic how much card advantage he was getting, even without the Zendikar Resurgent or the Cascade. Please be sure to tune in every Monday and Thursday at 11 AM Eastern Standard Time for a guaranteed new video. You can also follow me on Twitter at MTGMudsta, You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/mtgmudsta, and lastly, you can check me out when I stream at twitch.tv/mtgmudsta. This video is brought to you in support by my patrons. If you're looking for a way to help out the channel, please be sure to visit the link below. Thank you all for watching this video, and don't forget, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.